The terrorist truck driver who carved a 14-block path of destruction along a lower Manhattan bike path was celebrating the deadly attack, sources said Wednesday. Sayfullo Saipov, 29, was rejoicing in his room at Bellevue Hospital after killing 8 people and injuring 13 others along the Hudson River Tuesday, sources told the Daily News. "He's talking. He's laughing. He's very happy with what he did," said a source who was briefed by a hospital staffer on the floor. "He feels accomplished." A second source said Saipov, in his interviews with investigators, showed no remorse and was glad that he did what he set out to do. The ISIS-inspired Saipov was said to be in critical but stable condition after a sharpshooting NYPD cop put a bullet in his abdomen following the Halloween assault. Saipov planned the attack for a number of weeks, said NYPD Deputy Commissioner for Counterterrorism John Miller. He seemed to have followed almost to a T the instructions ISIS had put out on how to carry out a truck-borne attack, Miller added. Investigators found at the scene the paintball and pellet guns Saipov was brandishing. In and around his rented Home Depot truck, they discovered multiple knives and a handwritten note in Arabic. The gist of the note was, "The Islamic State would endure forever," Miller said. The suspect arrived in the U.S. from his native Uzbekistan in March 2010, authorities said. Saipov was never the subject of an FBI or NYPD investigation, but he was reportedly on the radar of the authorities. Saipov was in fact interviewed by federal agents in 2015 in connection with a probe of terror suspects who overstayed their tourists' visas, ABC News reported. The suspect was listed as a point of contact for 2 men whose names appeared on a Department of Homeland Security counterterrorism database. Miller said investigators were in the early stages of digging into his past and terror links. "What we are looking for is how has he touched the subjects of other investigations," Miller said. "It appears he will have some connectivity to individuals who were the subjects of investigations though he himself was not." Sources said E-ZPass records revealed that Saipov drove into the city earlier this week via the Holland Tunnel and Georgia-Washington Bridge in what investigators believe were reconnaissance trips. Saipov spoke via cell phone to people in Florida and New Jersey in the hours before the attack. But investigators were still working to determine if the calls had anything to do with his sinister plans, sources said. Earlier in the day, Gov. Cuomo said that Saipov was radicalized in the U.S. in the last 7 years. After he came to the United States is when he started to become informed about ISIS and radical Islamic tactics, Cuomo said on CNN. Again, ISIS has gotten it down to a simple formula that they can put on the internet and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to rent a car, rent a truck. But they are cowards and they are depraved. The suspect lived in an apartment in Paterson, New Jersey with his wife, 2 young daughters and infant son, neighbors said. Saipov was known as a genial family man who largely kept to himself. "He always seemed pleasant every time I seen him, nothing out of the ordinary that would be shocking," said a 32-year-old neighbor who identified himself as Keith. Altana Dimitrovska, 63, said she often saw Saipov in the morning bringing one of his kids to kindergarten. "I spoke to him once," she said. "I said, 'Do you go to work?' or anything because I never saw him go to work." Saipov said yes but didn't elaborate, she recalled. He moved to New Jersey after stints in Ohio and Florida where he was known as a pleasant guy who showed no interest in radical Islam. "He was a very good person when I knew him," Kobyl John Matkarov, 37, of Fort Myers, FLA, told the New York Times. "He liked the U.S. He seemed very lucky, and all the time he was happy and talking like everything is okay. He did not seem like a terrorist, but I did not know him from the inside." After arriving in the U.S. from the Uzbekistan capital of Tashkent, Saipov settled in the Cincinnati area. U.S. v. Sayfullo Saipov complaint by New York Daily News on Scribd. He lived with a fellow Uzbeki family before eventually moving to Florida. His father in Uzbekistan had asked the family patriarch to house his son while the younger Saipov tried to get his green card, according to the Cincinnati Enquirer. "He was really calm," Dilnoze Abdusamatova, who was a teenager when Saipov moved into her family's townhouse, told the Enquirer. "He always used to work. He wouldn't go to parties or anything. He only used to come home and rest and leave and go back to work." Saipov wed his wife, an Uzbek named Nozima Odilova, in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio in March 2013. At the time, he was 25 and she was 19, according to CNN. Saipov's wife was cooperating with authorities and has denied having prior knowledge of the attack. But investigators have yet to rule that out, sources said. His mother-in-law, Nodira Agzomova, said she was stunned by Saipov's crime. "I'm in shock, can't believe it," Agzomova said in the lobby of her Brooklyn building. through anger. RGT Images authorities on Wednesday released a timeline of the attack. Saipov rented a truck from a Home Depot in the New Jersey town of Passaic about 2:06 p.m. He crossed into the city via the George Washington Bridge about 2:43 p.m. before heading south on the West Side Highway. At 3:04 p.m., Saipov's truck entered the bike lane at Houston St. He barreled into numerous pedestrians and cyclists, triggering a flood of 911 calls at 3:08 p.m. About the same time, civilians who witnessed the carnage alerted a pair of NYPD officers who were in the area responding to an unrelated call. By then, Saipov's truck had slammed into a school bus and he emerged from the crippled vehicle yelling in Arabic, "God is great." James Kivam, New York Daily News. As Saipov wandered into the street, waving his pellet and paintball guns, Officer Brian Nash, 25, pulled out his service weapon and opened fire. Saipov crumpled to the ground, ending the threat. The charges against Saipov have yet to be revealed. Manhattan U.S. Attorney June Kim declined to say whether his office would seek the death penalty. An Uber spokeswoman said Saipov drove for the ride-sharing company and records show Saipov was also licensed as a commercial truck driver and formed a pair of businesses in Ohio. Saipov's mother, father and sister were being questioned in Uzbekistan, a source in the country's security services told Radio Free Europe. In his morning TV appearance, Cuomo called the driver a depraved coward and said the attack did not instill terror among hardy New Yorkers. "Don't let them win. They are called terrorists. They want to impart terror. They didn't," Cuomo added. At an afternoon press conference with police officials, Mayor de Blasio paid tribute to the victims and declared the attack a failure in a crucial regard. "We understand this was an attack on our values," de Blasio said. "It was an effort to break our spirit. But as an effort to break our spirit it failed," with Kenneth Lovett.